My name is Elena Brooks. I'm 32 years old, and 3 weeks ago, I learned a truth that changed my life forever. Respect is not something you beg for, it's something you walk away for when it's denied. It happened at what was meant to be our anniversary dinner. Hundreds of guests, polished smiles, and a room filled with people who measured worth by status instead of character. My husband, Adrian Cole, stood beside me, but not with me. That night, his silence spoke louder than any words, and when things crossed a line no one should ever tolerate, I realized something I should have understood years earlier: staying quiet in the face of wrong does not preserve peace, it only protects injustice. But my story didn't start there. It began 4 years earlier, when I first met his family. I still remember that evening clearly. I wore something simple, something honest, the kind of thing my late mother used to say reflected who you really are. I brought a homemade dessert, thinking effort would be valued. It wasn't. His mother, Catherine Cole, looked at me with a polite smile that carried judgment underneath. His father, Richard Cole, asked about my background, not out of curiosity, but to measure me. When I told them my father worked in automotive services, there was a pause. Then came a light laugh. Not loud enough to call out, but sharp enough to feel. Adrian said nothing. That silence stayed with me longer than the words. That night, I made a quiet decision. I would not explain myself. I would not prove my worth through wealth or background. I wanted to see who they were when they thought I had nothing. Over time, I saw everything. At family gatherings, I was treated as temporary. At dinners, I was spoken over. At events, I was reduced to something decorative rather than respected. And every time I tried to address it, Adrian would say, "Don't make it a big deal." But the truth is, what we ignore doesn't disappear, it grows. There is something important people often forget: a family is not defined by how much they have, but by how they treat those who have less. And a spouse is not someone who stands beside you only when it is convenient, but someone who protects your dignity even when it is uncomfortable. I stayed longer than I should have. Not because I didn't see the signs, but because I believed patience would change hearts. I believed that if I remained respectful, things would improve. But patience is a virtue only when it is paired with boundaries. Without boundaries, it becomes silent acceptance. What no one knew was that my father, Daniel Brooks, had built a life through years of honest work and discipline. He started small, worked hard, and earned respect not by showing off success, but by living with integrity. I never spoke about it because I wanted to be valued for who I was, not what I came from. And in that silence, I learned who truly valued people, and who only valued appearances. The anniversary night was the final test. The room was filled with influential people. Conversations revolved around power, business, and alliances. I noticed things I had ignored before: how carefully words were chosen, how respect was given selectively, how relationships were treated like transactions. When Adrian's father began speaking about the future and new directions, it became clear that this wasn't just a celebration. It was a message. A message that I no longer fit into the picture they had designed. Adrian didn't stop it. He didn't correct it. He didn't even acknowledge it. And in that moment, I understood something deeply. A person who allows others to dishonor you is part of that dishonor. What followed was not loud, not dramatic, but it was final. I chose to stand up, not to argue, not to create a scene, but to reclaim something I had slowly lost: my dignity. I walked away. Not in anger, but in clarity. Because there comes a moment when continuing a relationship is no longer patience, it becomes self-neglect. In the days that followed, everything changed. Truth surfaced. Responsibilities were questioned. Decisions were made. Not because I wanted revenge, but because every action carries consequences, and no one escapes the results of what they choose. I ended the marriage quietly. Respectfully. Without dragging things into bitterness. Because another truth became clear to me. Justice does not require noise. It requires firmness. Months later, I started again. Not in the same environment, not with the same people, but with a different mindset. I focused on meaningful work, helping others who felt unheard, especially those who had been silenced in their own homes and relationships. I began to understand something my mother once told me. Real strength is not in winning against people. It's in staying true when you could have become like them. Families have responsibilities. Parents are meant to guide with fairness, not pride. Children are meant to honor, but not at the cost of truth. A husband is meant to protect, not ignore. A wife is meant to support, but not erase herself. When these roles are misunderstood, relationships don't just weaken, they lose their purpose. Today, I don't carry anger. I carry awareness. And I carry a lesson I wish I had learned earlier. Respect is not something you wait years to receive. If it is missing from the beginning, it is unlikely to appear later. Choose relationships where dignity is mutual, not one-sided. Do not ignore small signs of disrespect, they are often the foundation of bigger harm. Stand for what is right, even if it means standing alone for a while. And remember, true success is not in status or wealth, it is in character, accountability, and how you treat others when you don't need anything from them. Question for the audience. If you were in her place, would you have stayed and kept trying to fix things? Or would you have walked away the moment respect was lost?